Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. First and foremost, I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. In fact, this is January 1st, 2024. We made it. We turned it over into the next year, and I warned people the other day, be careful with how much you drink on New Year's Eve. You don't want to bring the new year in with a headache or a hangover. You want to feel good during the new year. I took my own advice for a change, and I didn't have a single drink of alcohol last night, although I had it the night before. So that I'm not trying to act like I'm an angel, but I took my own advice. So this case is quite disturbing. So you see the thumbnail on the screen with the Police Off the Cuff logo. Savannah Soto and Matthew Guerra, the ongoing investigation. And this investigation started out heavy duty, a forensic investigation, a crime scene investigation. And it was mentioned early on, was this perhaps a murder-suicide? The couple had some relationship problems. In fact, Matthew had been arrested before for assaulting Savannah. So this would have been something that wasn't so unusual. And when the police initially saw what was called a close contact wound on Matthew's head, that leads you to believe potentially most suicides people put the gun up to their head. And if they're right-handed, it's on the right side of their head, or they put it in their mouth. And I hate to be so graphic, but that is what investigators learn when they investigate homicide and they go to a lot of suicides. It was determined, however, by the medical examiner that this, in fact, was not a murder-suicide. This was, in fact, a homicide. And there's probably tons of forensic reasons that the medical examiner and the investigators, the on-scene investigators on the scene, determined it to be a murder, a capital murder, they called it, rather than a murder-suicide. So that's the science of the investigation. Let's get into the art of the investigation. And we're going to do that in a second. But first, you're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped in 10th and Ranch, Michael Byler.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
So we're back. So unfortunately, the families involved in this case, Savannah was an 18-year-old teenager who was 9 months pregnant, who in fact was overdue. And that's one of the reasons when she didn't show up at her appointment to be induced at the hospital, that her family knew something was really horribly wrong. I like to just go over the timeline a little bit because it always helps to go over the timeline, to discuss what's going on. So Friday, December 22nd, Savannah Soto is last seen about 2 p.m. with her boyfriend, Matthew Guerra, at an apartment complex where they lived in the 6,000 block of Grissom Road in Leon Valley. They were reported to be in a gray 2013 Kia Optima. A call later identified as belonging to Guerra. Soto was pregnant with her first child, who she planned to name Fabian, family members said. Family members called Leon Valley Police to request that they visit Soto's apartment to conduct a welfare check. Police said they went to the apartment, saw no signs of forced entry, and determined there were no grounds for concern. Now, why is this so important? Well, the date is Friday, December 22nd. They did not find the bodies till the 26th. However, potentially could they have been laying in that car, or in that car, dead, or DOA, as we say in the police service, for 3 to 4 days? That's a possibility, and that's part of the science of investigation also. the body temperatures, the rigor mortis, the alga mortis, the condition of the blood, coagulation of the blood, the decomposition. That's all the things that would determine a time frame, as well as when they do find the cell phones. And they apparently haven't found the cell phones yet. One of the big indicators that this also was not a suicide. If this was a murder-suicide, you would expect to find the murder weapon in the car. There was no murder weapon in the car. And you may say, well, if they were there for 3 or 4 days, couldn't someone have opened the car door and took the gun and jetted away with the gun? That's a possibility. But usually if someone walks upon a homicide scene, even criminals know this, they do not want to touch the crime scene as to potentially implicate themselves in it. So that's unlikely. So neither the cell phone nor the gun was on the scene. Now, here's a good shot of the car. Now, we can't tell, and we understand from what's been leaked out so far, Matthew Guerra was sitting in the back seat, and Savannah was sitting in the front passenger seat. So that means two different things. Did the shooter sit in the front of the car, or did he shoot both of them from outside the car? If he shot them from outside the car, we'd expect to see glass all over the inside of the car, and there would be indicators that the gunshots came from outside the car and not inside the car. The police haven't released anything about caliber or make or model of the gun. Spent shells would, if they used the semi-automatic, we would expect to find them inside the car if the shooter, in fact, shot them from inside the car. If the shooter shot from outside the car, we would expect to see spent shells. Again, if it was a semi-automatic. If it was a revolver, then all bets are off. Then the shells stay inside the firearm, and it's not going to tell us anything. And one of the things that, so you can see this detective has, we can't tell from that shot whether that the rear window is shattered or not, because the detective, but from this angle, it's really impossible to see. But the detectives are going over the crime scene. But all of those questions that I'm raising now, hypothetically, they're all answered. The police know the answers to these questions right now. Yes, they can answer. There was spent shells in the car. They were 9mm. They were 45. They were 22, whatever they were. They know the answer to that now. And we do not know the answer to that. So we're just sort of conjecturing. One of the things that is quite disturbing about this case, of course, is that Savannah is 9 months pregnant. And Matthew is a young man, and this was their first baby. So someone that would shoot and kill a couple, a pregnant woman of 18 years old and her boyfriend, it gives us a certain intuition as to why and who did this. And what do I mean by this? Well, just from all my years in homicide, and you guys aren't dumb either. You know what time it is. This looks like a drug hit. This absolutely looks like a drug hit. It does not. So that type of violence and that type of not caring what is done to another human being smells of a shooter that has no soul, that'll kill an 18-year-old pregnant woman. And it also points to other things. Was this a hit to shut up the victim, Matthew Guerra? And I invite you, all you guys that are true crime aficionados, as I call you, that you like true crime, to go on Facebook. And is that gospel? No, but do you think the police go on Facebook? You bet. Go on social media sites. And I just happened to pull this one little thing up. And this doesn't mean that it's true, but it's smelling of some bad stuff here. All right. It's just not looking great. And someone posts on Facebook, please, if you post this, please don't show my name. But I know what happened. I was one of Matthew's customers / friends. And this is what, according to basically an anonymous post on Facebook. He got caught up by the police. He was in big trouble. They found all his drugs and guns and was going to go to jail for life, but they told him if he snitched on all his suppliers, he wasn't going to go to jail. He snitched on all of them. He didn't want to go to jail. He wanted to meet his baby boy. Somehow, one of the suppliers found out Matthew snitched, and that's why they got set up. Matthew was going to re-up the next day. They acted like they didn't know he snitched, and they had him go in the back seat, and they shot both of them. So this is on Facebook. Does that mean that that's true? No. But is that something that the police must take into consideration? Look, the police know who Matthew Guerra is. They know exactly who he is, and they know this place that they live. And it's obviously has a lot of drug activity and potentially even some gang activity. All right. So I would like to know, apparently Matthew Guerra had an arrest recently for assaulting Savannah. So he was on probation for that. And apparently recently they wouldn't discuss the charges. He took another collar. And I don't know what that was for. Could that have been for drugs? Could that have been what this poster on the person that posted this on Facebook was discussing? Yeah, absolutely. It could be exactly that. So I just say it reeks of the drug trade, because you don't kill an 18-year-old 9-month pregnant woman. In essence, the shooter killed 3 people. He killed Matthew, he killed Savannah, and he killed the unborn baby who was full term, 9 months. So that's a soulless person. That's why I say that this is most likely a drug hit, has something to do with drugs. And you may say, oh, you're disparaging this poor young man. Look, I'm looking at what I learned over a 27-year NYPD police career. This is called the victimology. And when we speak about the victimology, and we all went to school, we know ology means the study of. The study of. So who is Matthew Guerra? Let's look into his background. Let's do a deep dive. Does he work? Say he has no job, and there was a picture on the internet showing him holding up a whole stack of money. I'll see if I can pull it up. Look at this picture on the screen. You see in his left hand, I don't know what denominations those are, but there's a stack of money. You see he's got all the fronts, they call them. That's common among the drug trade too. All made of gold. It's a status symbol in the drug trade. So believe me, I know what I'm talking about. This smells of a drug hit. And and when this first occurred, the police were talking murder-suicide. This is absolutely no murder-suicide. This is absolutely a drug hit. And I feel sorry for his parents, and I feel sorry for the people that love Savannah Soto and the unborn child. But you know something? The drug trade is a vicious trade, and it's unforgiving. And when things like this happen, you can't take it back. You can't undo your life and say, oh, I should have never went into the drug trade. Let me play a little of this from Law and Crime.
Tragically, after she and the father of her child were found dead inside a car with gunshot wounds, just days after being reported missing. And now police have 2 persons of interest. The family of 18-year-old Savannah Soto reported the teen missing when she never showed up to the hospital where she was set to be induced for labor. At the time, police confirmed the identity of Savannah's 22-year-old boyfriend, Matthew Guerra, who owned the Kia Optima that they were found dead inside.
We believe that it is the missing woman and her boyfriend, but we can't confirm that right now.
Well, that's confirmed now.
The medical examiner takes a look at the bodies and makes that determination.
This was the initial investigation where they were calling this a potential murder-suicide. We know now that's not the case. This was a capital murder. It seems to me, and I'll take that leap, that this was a drug hit.
As to their identity.
The day after Christmas, in a press conference after the gruesome discovery, San Antonio Police Department Chief William McManus told local reporters the investigation is still in its preliminary stage. As family members of the victims can be heard crying, authorities said at the time their cause of death was still unclear.
But what we're looking at right now is a very, very perplexing crime scene. And detectives right now are looking at this as a possible murder.
All right, that, something, just to cut to the chase. They were being very careful in the very beginning of this. They were saying they said initially there was no manner of death determined. And you guys know from watching Police Off the Cuff and some of the other podcasts that have retired coppers that manner of death means homicide, suicide, accidental, or natural, or there's one other way if you want to throw the fifth way in, undetermined. So they were saying on the scene of this that there was no manner of death yet. Well, that's been changed. The manner of death is homicide, right? It's a murder. It's not a suicide and a murder. It's a straight out capital murder, they're saying right now. And they figured that out, yes, forensically, science, the science of investigation. Where did the gunshots come from? And when we speak about close contact wounds, that's what Matthew Guerra had. To the head, a close contact wound. So what does that mean? The shooter stuck the barrel of the gun right up against his head, because out of that barrel will be gunshot residue and soot, and it will actually leave what they call tattooing. If they pressed it right against your head, it leaves something called a tattoo. And that's an imprint of the barrel of the gun on your head. So was that type of evidence there? If the shooting occurred that close and inside the car, and again, I'll repeat, if the gun was a semi-automatic, we would expect to find spent shells inside that car. And all bets are off if it's a revolver. And again, if the shooter was outside. But it would be tough if the shooter was outside for him to have pressed the gun against. So there you go. There's an indication that the shooter was in the car. Because if he shot through the glass, you wouldn't have had the same gunshot residue on the victim's head. Let's go back to the chief.
And but we don't know for sure.
But within days, police are sharing new information, including a devastating revelation.
It appeared that the vehicle had been located at that location for several days. The medical examiner had identified 22-year-old Matthew as one of the deceased victims in the vehicle, and he died from a gunshot wound to the head. The manner of that death is still pending.
Well, it's not. It's murder.
The second deceased victim has not yet been officially identified by the medical examiner. However, I think we can be confident that that second victim was Savannah.
San Antonio PD also released this surveillance video and are seeking information on two persons of interest. Police say the footage was taken from a nearby location where Savannah and Matthew's bodies were found. It captures a dark-colored pickup truck slowly pulling up to Matthew's silver Kia.
You know something? This is so important. You know why? Because I guarantee you, I can just about guarantee you that the police have already identified these two persons in this black pickup truck. Because both of these families, unfortunately, are no strangers to law enforcement. And last year in 2022, Savannah Soto's 15-year-old brother was shot to death. So they know the local police, and the local police know them. And of course, Matthew Guerra, if he's a player, if he's selling drugs, and he's also been known to the police by his domestic violence incident with Savannah. So when we show this video with this pickup truck, and again, let's get back to the victimology. The victimology, the study of the victim. Let's look into the victim's background. Let's study who they are. Let's see who Matthew hangs with. Do you think Matthew has friends? Yeah. Do you think his friends are crying that he's dead now? That he's been shot? Yes. Do you think his friends know what he was doing? You know what? Do you think his friends know what avenue he was playing in? Do you think they know he was playing with matches? You bet they do. You bet they do. They know what he was up to. So the police are all over that as part of the victimology. The same thing with Savannah. They're going to go to her family and talk to every single person they know, friends, family. What do you know about this? What enemies? And that little thing I posted before from Facebook, I don't know if that's true, but I never in my life carried around a wad of bills like that and was taking a picture with my fiance or my wife showing and wearing gold fronts, which also I know you may say, oh, he's being too cop-like, and that's a sign. That's a sign. Who's going to pay whatever those things cost? They probably cost 10, 15 grand, maybe more than that for gold teeth fronts. You know, who's going to spend that amount of money other than a drug dealer? You know, I certainly wouldn't. You know, my hard-earned money I'm going to spend on fronts. You know, so all of those things are indicators. I know you might say, oh, they're not very circumstantial, 100%. But guess what? That's how you develop leads and find out who actually did this. So when they talk about the persons of interest who get out of this car right now,
Optima. But what's more shocking, police say one of the persons of interest can be seen driving his car. About 15 seconds into the video, a person can be seen getting out of the pickup, walking to the door of the gray Kia to talk with the person in the driver's seat before going back into the pickup. Then both vehicles drive away. Police say right now it's unclear what link the two have to Savannah and Matthew, and say they couldn't provide more details pending the investigation. Earlier, when Savannah and Matthew's bodies were discovered in
this is the great picture. I don't know what denominations those bills are that he's holding in his left hand, but it seems like it's a lot of money. Even if those are singles, but which I doubt they are, that's a lot of money. Who carries that amount of cash around with them? I certainly don't. These days, when cash is no longer king, most people carry almost no cash. But that is also a status symbol of the drug trade. Flash the cash. Show how much cash you got, right? He's also making a little sign with his right hand. You know, I don't know if that's a gang sign or whatever the hell it is, but it's an indicator that he's a player. Playa. He's a player, right? He's a player in the trade.
The gray Kia. Police believe their bodies were in Matthew's car for about 3 or 4 days. And at the time, police said it was unclear if weapons were found inside the vehicle. But just days after the tragic discovery, according to reports from local NBC affiliate News for San Antonio, they claim their sources familiar with the investigation say police did not find a weapon or even a cell phone of Savannah's boyfriend Matthew in the vehicle where they were found. And more alarming, the local news station says Matthew's body was discovered in the back seat, while Savannah's body was discovered in the front passenger seat with a child carrier on her lap. While police confirm Matthew died from—
Well, that's sort of an indicator that, and I'm guessing because I don't have all of the information, that the shooter may have sat in the car with them. Right? Matthew was disarmed. He knew who he was doing business with, right? I'm sure that Matthew knew who the shooter was prior to getting shot in the head at almost point blank range, right? So was the shooter in the car? The police know that. They know where the shots came from at this point, right? So yeah, absolutely. He was probably shot in the head by someone he knows, and that's why he let the guy sit in the car, because he knew him. He knew the dude, right?
Manner of death has not been determined. The manner meaning, was it a suicide or was it a murder?
So here's what else we know so far. Savannah, who was 9 months pregnant, was last seen at her apartment on December 22nd in Leon Valley, a city about 10 miles away from downtown San Antonio. Her family grew worried when she didn't show up to her doctor's appointment and reported her missing. In a Facebook post, Savannah's concerned mother wrote, quote, "I'm worried about her safety. She's with her boyfriend who is no good. Prayer for my baby girl."
Whoa. You see that one? She is with her boyfriend who is no good. So the Soto family knew who Matthew Guerra was. They knew what he was all about. So there's an indicator there. I don't think you need to speculate anymore. The family knew he was a player. But what are you supposed to do about it? Your daughter's pregnant by this guy, and he's a player. He's in the trade, right? And bad things happen to people that are in the trade. And so there's a quote right from the mother. I'm worried about her safety. she is with her boyfriend, who is no good. I wonder why she knew that.
Authorities issued a coordinated law enforcement adult rescue alert, known in Texas as a clear alert, to help police locate the pregnant teen. Photos of Savannah on social media show what appears to be a happy mother-to-be, beaming at what appears to be her baby shower. In this photo, Savannah and her boyfriend are shown opening presents with blue decorations that seemingly confirm they were expecting a baby boy, and it was later revealed by family they plan to name the baby Fabian. In another photo, Matthew cradles the belly of his pregnant girlfriend as the two appear excited for their next step. At this time, we don't know much about Savannah's boyfriend Matthew, but his father and stepmother told a local news station the couple was anxiously awaiting for the arrival of their.
Except they know about this picture here with him holding about a 6-inch wad of bills, maybe 6 or 8 inches high. I don't know any of you guys that do that. I have never done that in my life. Held a 6-inch high wad of bills. Where are you getting that cash from, right?
Their baby. They say on Saturday, December 23rd, when no one heard from Savannah or Matthew, Matthew's father, Gabriel, kicked in their apartment door in hopes of finding more answers. Matthew's father told Fox San Antonio they discovered Savannah's overnight baby bag for the hospital that she didn't take with her, throwing him into immediate panic. In light of the young couple's body being discovered, it's been reported Matthew Guerra was on probation for assaulting Savannah last year on Christmas. The charge had Matthew on probation, which was scheduled to end in June 2024, but he picked up new charges unrelated to the assault.
Boom. He picked up new charges recently. They're not telling us that, and neither are the police throwing it out there. He picked up new charges. Could that be the drug arrest? Could that be he took a drug arrest and that's why the people that he's doing business with think that he ratted them out to keep himself out of the mix? Is that the reason for this hit? Very well could be. So the speculation you see, and you may say, oh, it's not fair to go to social media because people, you're right. But you know something? As part of an investigation, use social media, right? We used to have in New York City, we'd have a shooting happen, and the next day, the perps were showing off on YouTube and bragging about the shooting they did the night before. So you would be remiss in your duties as an investigator to ignore social media, to not go on social media and use that as an investigative tool, as an investigative resource. How about in the identification of perpetrators? You ever think of that one? How do you think a lot of times a perpetrator gets identified? Sometimes in New York City, and we'd pull our hair out. That's why I don't have that much hair left. We'd pull our hair out when a shooter or someone would not be in the system. Like they had never been arrested, or when they were arrested, could have been as a juvenile, and their juvenile record was expunged from the system. So there was no photo. So how are we going to get this guy ID'd? Oh, there's a thing called social media. And guess what? It's fair game. Why? Because people are putting their stuff out on social media voluntarily. So can the popo look at that stuff voluntarily and see when they get nicknames, when they get street names, identify the potential shooter from social media? You bet. It's one of the best investigative resources of the 21st century. And the criminal mind they're not smart. Let me put it that way. So they'll be there like this, posing with their guns and stuff. Oh, that's so-and-so, and nicknames and all of that stuff. Nicknames that you get from the street. And sure enough, where are those nicknames also posted? You got it on Facebook, on TikTok, right? On YouTube, on Instagram. Snapchat is the one that I don't know much about, but apparently there too. So the police use these investigative resources to build a case, and is that part of what I refer to as the victimology? You bet. The study of the victim. Let's see who he is, if he has a persona online, if he's got information online about who he is, what he is, who he hangs with, who his friends are. It's a treasure trove of information, better than like a gang unit that collects photos of gangbangers and potential drug dealers. Social media is amazing for those purposes.
That extended his probation through February 2025. Matthew's family told local news reporters they don't believe he's responsible for the heinous crime. But was it possible there was trouble in paradise between the two? According to forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan, at this time, he doesn't believe we can jump to that conclusion.
So from the beginning, I thought that, like many people, you're kind of watching.
This guy, Joseph Scott Morgan, he's brilliant. I like his calm way he speaks. He's very smart with crime scene stuff, but he's speaking about this case now as the police reported it, as a potential murder-suicide. We know that's all changed now, but still some of the things he says about the crime scene is very important, and I'm going to play a little bit more of him.
Watching the news, I watch the news every day, and I thought that's that this is going to be a murder-suicide. And of course, it turned out that apparently it's being looked at a bit more with a bit more magnification on the situation. So right now, we're still trying to understand what the dynamics were at the scene.
With nearly 2 decades of experience as a forensic death investigator, Morgan has seen numerous crime scenes of all natures and explains, as police are exploring all avenues, there are some questions he would like to see answered.
That's the reason you have the chief saying this, that they're looking at all possibilities here, I think, because you really have to, again, you're plumbing the depths here of just absolute depravity. You're talking about killing this young pregnant woman, who would want to do this sort of thing. And if they cannot say definitively from a scientific perspective that this young man took the life of this young woman along with this baby, then you're going to be looking elsewhere. And that's where forensics comes in. I'm very fascinated about this case because working homicides involving motor vehicles are particularly challenging, but they can give you a lot of information. And let's just say, depending upon where the victims were positioned in the vehicle, are they in the back seat? Were they in the front seat? Were they seated side by side? Were they laying on top of one another? Is there glass blown into the cabin? Did these gunshots originate from the exterior of the car? Did they only pass through the windows? Were the windows down? Did they pass through, say, the car body itself, where you're going through the sidewalls of the car, through the doors and this sort of thing? Did they come from the rear or the front? Was the car stopped? What position was the gear lever in the car? So you have to consider all of this. And here is one really interesting piece to this. Everybody, particularly as it applies to my line of work in forensics, that looks at us and looks at what we do, the one thing that always comes to mind is DNA, right? So if you're in this very tight confined,
that's why he's so brilliant. If the shooter got inside the car, did the shooter leave his DNA in the car, potentially in the front seat? And that's if he got inside that car. And right at this point, the police know the answer to that question. So hopefully they swabbed the front seat. But what if he didn't touch anything in the car, or he had gloves on? Say he didn't touch the dashboard. He didn't touch the dashboard, but could he have left a hair from his head inside that car? Could he have left skin cells in that side of the car? You always have to think. And Joseph Scott Morgan, boom, that's why he is who he is. He draws your attention to that. So how would the shooter explain his DNA in the car? Although there could be several different types of DNA in a car, because I'm sure other people have been in that car. And again, other people have been in that car before this heinous crime took place.
On space. And let's say that there was a perpetrator in that vehicle with them. Is there any foreign DNA in that vehicle that you would not otherwise expect to find in there? Also, is this an individual, perhaps, if this was targeted, did they walk up to the vehicle and put their hand on the exterior of the car as they began to fire? That's something that we have to consider as well, because that's not just DNA. That could be a latent print. So they're going down all of these avenues in this particular case.
While Chief McManus said in an earlier press conference they believe the bodies were in Matthew's vehicle for 3 or 4 days, that answer still begs more questions.
Why would the individuals in this community not have stopped to check the car out? And again, this begs another question here when it comes to assessment of biological findings and decompositional findings, because he's talking about 3 days. Is he saying that the car was there for 3 days? Or is he saying that they were deceased in the car for 3 days?
That's a great question also. And one of the things I think you can answer a question like that potentially through a video canvas of this building. When was the car pulled over there? Were they seen walking into the car? What was the date when they were seen walking into the car? We spoke earlier on if the bodies were in the car for 3 or 4 days, there's going to be rigor mortis, alga mortis. There's going to be decomposition of the bodies depending on how cold it was. If it was cold outside, potentially it would keep the bodies in good condition, rather than if it was a summertime, they would decompose rather quickly. Perhaps they were kept in a pristine, somewhat, not totally, but if it was really cold out, they would have been kept in a pretty good condition. So that is a great question. Or did they come from another location? Could they have been shot in another location and the killer drove them to that location and dumped the car there with both the bodies in there? That's a question too. And again, I believe the police will know the answer to that. And again, with all the homicides we've covered on this, the car computer, could give us an indication of where the car was. And of course, the treasure trove of all treasure troves is the victim's cell phone. And apparently that's not on the scene right now. His cell phone is not on the scene. However, does that make this all mute and dead? No. The police get his cell phone number. They get Savannah's cell phone number, and they get a search warrant for it, and they're able to pull up the calls and the text messages and that stuff. It'll take a little while longer, but of course the family will have the cell phone numbers of both the victims.
Because that's a big difference. Because if you're saying deceased in the car for 3 days, that opens up the door that this may have taken place somewhere else, and the car was essentially deposited there. As opposed to you have eyewitnesses, which is going to be very important. All the residents around this area will be asked. This canvas will go on with the police department. They'll go door to door. They might say, hey, look, we've got this car out here. You've been going back and forth to work. It's Christmas time. Maybe you've been in the house a long time. Maybe you haven't journeyed out. Did you notice the car, one of your runs into town at some point in time, or was it there?
Joseph Scott Morgan is saying things that are gold. And so, but let me just give you a little sort of lesson in this stuff. One of the most important things that detectives do is talking to people. And I would say in my years in homicide, I would say 80 to 90% of the cases we solved were from talking to people, interview and interrogation, collecting the information and finding out maybe from 50, 100 people what happened. And as you sift through all the lies, the truth starts to come out and you get a picture. And then when you get the truth told to you by people, now you can start comparing also the evidence to the truths that you know now. Do you think that right now the police maybe even have a name of the shooter, maybe even have a person of interest, but to use that term, they're not ready to pull the trigger. They're not ready to make an arrest because they could make an arrest, but they don't have enough to bring the case forward. And when you arrest someone based on probable cause, facts and circumstances that would allow a reasonable person to believe that a crime has been committed and the person who was arrested committed the crime, you want to make sure that you can prove this case. And your probable cause is the lowest threshold in the criminal justice system. Of course, if this case goes forward and goes to trial, the prosecution has to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. But you're telling me I'm telling you on Savannah Soto's family and Matthew Guerra's family, they're not getting calls from the street telling them who did this. Do you think Matthew Guerra's mother and father know what he was doing? Do you think they know what he was doing? That's his mother and father. And God bless them. They're in tremendous, tremendous pain right now. They just lost their son. And I feel so horrible for them. And you can never equate the pain that they're going through. But do you think maybe they had an inkling about what Matthew was doing with his life? Do you think they did? I think they probably did, and it's the acceptance of that by some adults that also contributes to this lifestyle of criminality and becoming a gangbanger. The Missing Children Project became a YouTube member. Thank you so much. The Missing Children Project. I said product. The Missing Children Project. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then subscribe to us. Go on YouTube, hit our subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, and share it. Share it with your friends, your family, your cousins. We would appreciate that. And if you want to contribute to us, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels. And we also have, as you just saw, a YouTube channel membership for the Missing Children Project. Just joined. Thank you so much, Missing Children Project. So this case now, they're going to make an arrest in this case. I have no doubt they're going to. Do they have a person of interest already? Is there someone under arrest already? I don't know. But do you think the community, and again, we hear in homicide cases, snitches get stitches. Guess what? Someone's going to come forward in this case, and you know why they're going to come forward? Because of the heinousness of it, that an 18-year-old pregnant female, pregnant for 9 months, is shot and murdered along with her boyfriend inside a car. So in essence, not 2 people were murdered, 3 people were murdered. Someone is going to come across, someone is going to come forward, and they're going to give the police the information they need to make an arrest and build a case. Is that there are a lot of problems with coming forward as a witness in the inner city? Yeah, that whole thing, snitches get stitches. Yeah, it's a true thing. But there's people come forward all the time that will help the police to solve this case, and that's what they need. They need one witness, and I'm sure they're getting more than one witness. So they're getting anonymous calls all the. People would come up to me all the time and say, give me your card. I'm going to call you soon. I do it on the DL, That's an old street term. If you don't know it, if you from across the pound, on the down low, you sneak them your business card on the down low and they give you a call once you get back to the squad, or you gave them your cell phone number. So they give you a call on the down low. And so many times that would break a case wide open. That would solve the case that we needed, that one witness to come forward. So the term snitches get stitches. Yeah, it's true, but guess what? People still come forward. People still will cooperate because this is a horrific murder, and it's really a triple murder, not a double murder, because we have the unborn child in her ninth month of pregnancy murdered along with the mother.
At this particular time, but wasn't there then at this other time. And that's going to play a key role in this investigation.
But what about the possibility the 2 were tragically targeted? With police now seeking 2 persons of interest, that information could soon come to light.
Is this a road rage act, where just some random stranger begins to
we know it's not that.
into this vehicle, and they happen to come to rest on the side of the road, and the car is in park, and the keys are either in the ignition or within the vehicle or nowhere to be found.
Joseph Scott Morgan is speculating now, because this happened, several days ago before the new information came up, these persons of interest and the potential that people are coming forward to say this has something to do with the drug trade. And it has the earmarks of the drug trade written all over it. Whenever you see something this violent occur, that someone would actually kill a pregnant woman and her boyfriend, so 3 murders at once, it points directly right to the drug trade.
All of those little issues come into play here. Or is this something where they were specifically targeted, where maybe they were stopped on the side of the road and somebody had been following them? Maybe they got spooked. or were they placed there? So all of that is going to come into place. The police are going to be able to narrow this down very quickly. Are they involved with any kind of nefarious actors here?
Yes, we know now that that Matthew's involved in the drug trade based on social media posts, and the police know that. The other thing is most police departments, well, the NYPD has a narcotics unit and they have a gang unit, and they work a lot hand in hand. And narcotics, they'll know all the players in this vicinity. They probably know Matthew Guerra, and they'll tell you what they have on him. They'll tell you who his associates are. They have CIs. That's a little confidential informants. They have confidential informants on the street. They bring them in and to talk to them, and then they put them out on the street with their ear to the ground. That's an old expression. But the CIs will they're paid to go out there and be paid informants. So the CIs will come and say, well, this is what I'm hearing happened. It's always great in a homicide investigation to be told what happened by an informant or by witnesses, but you still have to prove what happened. You still have to get the evidence against the shooter or shooters to prove the case. But it's great to know this is what happened. And then you can start pounding on the evidence towards that end when you know what occurred. And it's so important.
People that might work in maybe a darker world. I don't know what their background is relative to drug involvement, violence, those sorts of things, but those threads are going to be pulled upon, and they're going to be explored in great detail.
The death of Savannah Soto isn't the first tragic death in her family. Savannah's 15-year-old brother, Ethan Soto, was shot and killed last year in 2022.
Boom. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? Her 15-year-old brother was shot and killed last year in 2022. That tells you they don't live in a very nice neighborhood. No one got shot in my neighborhood last year. No one, not a single person. This 15-year-old kid. So it's telling you the area they live it's a war zone. 15-year-old kid murdered. Let me play the rest of this. That's not supposed to happen.
2 teens were arrested for his murder shortly after. And in October, during a court hearing for one of the suspects, video captured inside the courtroom showed a massive brawl breakout between members of Savannah's family and the suspect's family. As Savannah's family faces yet another horrific tragedy, soon time will tell and reveal who was responsible.
Is there anyone out there that would have this much anger and this much hatred that they would rain down this kind of hell on this couple, and not just couple? We're talking about this young woman who is very pregnant. As a matter of fact, I think she's like a week past due. Remember, they were talking about inducing labor for her. That in and of itself rises to another level that I think many of us cannot fully appreciate, because it is absolutely horrific.
So, there you go. It's sort of pointing exactly in the direction that we're talking about, that this looks like a drug hit. Could it be a hit on someone who was snitching? As you know, snitches don't last very long in the hood. It absolutely could be. So it's, on Wednesday, December 27th, to just go over a little more of this timeline, the San Antonio Police Department describes the case as a capital murder and lists 3 victims: an 18-year-old Hispanic woman, a 22-year-old Hispanic man, and an unborn child deceased. And again, they reiterated that both victims suffered gunshot wounds. And it was determined totally I believe it was on Thursday, December 28th. The medical examiner had determined that this in no way was a murder-suicide. This, in fact, was a double, or if you will, triple homicide. So that's all been cleared up, and we know what happened. And there's also something here. The Guerra family takes to social media to denounce rumors that they were involved in the couple's disappearance and death. So there's all kinds of fingers pointing. And, that's one of the things about social media also, is that there's lots of rumors on social media. And as much as it's a good thing for investigators to have social media to let them know what the hell's going on, it also can be rampant with rumors. And of course, earlier on, because Savannah Soto was the victim of domestic violence by Matthew Guerra, there were rumors early on that the Soto family was going after the Guerra family, and there was no truth to that. So all of these rumors coming up on social media, and yeah, absolutely a good thing, but yes, can be a bad thing also. And Kenda, even if there were witnesses, nobody is going to cooperate. And Kenda, it's not always the truth. I mean, I worked in the hood my whole career, and Lieutenant Peter Pranzo worked in the 3-2 precinct, the heart of Harlem, during some of the worst times in the city's history. And Lieutenant Peter Pranzo, Harlem Raiders is his book. He'll tell you there's most of the people in that neighborhood are good people. About 2% of the population in the 3-2 precinct back when Lieutenant Pranzo was running things, 2% were the bad guys. 98% were the good guys. So the police are there to protect the good people in that community. Texas street stories. The guy in the ring cam is probably a suspect. He changed his appearance. He mostly 18 key, had long hair or a shag. Texas street stories, I agree. You're right. He is a suspect. But as I mentioned before, until the police are ready to pull the trigger and make an arrest, yeah, they know who these guys are. So what do? Leave them out there. Yeah, they're not going anywhere. We used to joke on the NYPD that when a guy did a murder in Manhattan, he fled the scene. Yeah, he went to the Bronx. That's about how far his geographic capability was. He fled to his aunt's house in the Bronx, although there were times in Washington Heights where Dominican nationals would do a murder, they'd flee back to the Dominican Republic. But usually, and we would jokingly say it, that yes, it was, he fled all the way to the Bronx. King of Raise Hell, she was just as much involved in the lifestyle. One of his friends stated she would take the money and hand over the drugs to the buyer. The unborn child was the victim in this tragedy. King of Raise Hell, I don't know if you're from San Antonio and have firsthand knowledge of this, but all of this stuff is going to come out, of course, in the investigation. L.A. Connection, Matthew's vigil is at 4 p.m. today. Well, may he rest in peace, and we pray for Matthew Guerra and his family. And, there's always victims, unintended victims. There's people that become victims of the drug trade. Telework mom, did the shooting happen when the guy got out of the truck? The car ended up around the corner. Telework mom, I don't think they have a very specific time frame now as to, and the police they just haven't put it out there yet. So did the shooting happen then? And did the shooter, but then I would ask, if the shooting happened right there, what was the victim, Matthew Guerra, doing in the back seat? How did that happen? Right? Could it have happened? Could they have said, I'll get in the car, let me drive, you sit in the back? But that's a little unusual, unless the guy pointed a gun at him and said, get the hell in the back seat, I'll drive your car, pulled the car somewhere else, shot the both of them and drove it back and dumped the car. Could that have happened? Absolutely could have happened. Yeah. Becky Pulford, can they trace the cause by road cameras? The poor baby so said, yes, they can. And they can also trace the cause through the computer inside the car, as well as if they did have their cell phones on them, the GPS in their cell phones could potentially track them. So all of those things, all of those investigative resources are very much a possibility in this case. So nothing is off the table. And we're sort of, right now, the police aren't, Boho Chick, now the son, daughter, and unborn grandson are dead in that family. Do the parents blame themselves? Well, I don't think so. But I would think it would be quite naive for anyone to think that the parents didn't know what their son was doing for a living. The parents knew damn well he was selling drugs, and when this thing happens, things like this happen. You still feel sorry for the families. They lost a loved one. And even though their loved one was committing a crime in selling drugs. And again, I'm not 100% saying that Matthew was, but it appears that way. It really appears that way. And I'm sure that the San Antonio police, they know the answers to these questions that I'm raising right now. I remember lots of times, sometimes when a drug dealer would get shot and killed, the family would come to the police department and say, can he get crime victims? Can he get, New York State has a fund, the Crime Victims Compensation Act. And what it was meant for was to compensate the victim and the victim's family when they were the victim of a crime. But this fund was only released after it was signed off by the police department. And if someone was an active drug dealer and their family petitioned to get the money from New York State Crime Victims Compensation Law, the detective would say, no, he's not a crime victim. He's out there pitching crack. He's not getting taxpayer funds to pay for his funeral or to reimburse the family. He's out there pitching crack. So lots of times the family would get all PO'd at us, but that's not what that fund was meant for. It wasn't meant to compensate the family of drug dealers who were killed plying their trade, and that's just a fact. And again, the detective who had the case would decide if the family got it or not. We play a little bit more of this here.
Exclusive new details about this case that potentially help explain why police have been so vague about what type of investigation they have on their hands. The I-Team's Mariah Medina has all these details for us tonight. Mariah?
That's right. Law enforcement sources tell me that San Antonio police didn't find a firearm or the cell phone of Savannah Soto's boyfriend, Matthew Guerra, in the car that the pair were found in Tuesday afternoon. Sources also sharing that Guerra's body was found in the back seat of the vehicle, while Soto was in the front passenger seat with a child carrier on her lap. I talked to Guerra's family, who tell me everything that they did to find the expectant parents and frustrations with that process.
But once it was like the 2:30 p.m. mark, we started panicking.
Panicked and nonstop calls.
So you could see they're heartbroken.
Racing over there and
calling police.
Gabriel and Raquel Guerra say they called 911 when they sensed their son and his girlfriend were in trouble. The husband and wife, who live in Bexar County, initially tried to file missing persons reports with the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. Soto's family.
So they were talking about when they reported
who live in
them
San
missing.
Antonio tried to file with San Antonio police. But because Guerra and Soto lived in Leon Valley, the report had to be taken by Leon Valley police.
well, I was told that they were trying to get the three agencies all the information they had and combine them into one report.
So one of the things on the NYPD, missing persons reports are taken at the where the missing person lives. So that's not just this locale, San Antonio, and the town that they lived in. It's taken the place of record is the missing persons resident precinct. So
as this was happening, Gabriel says he was racing to his son's apartment, kicking down the door after he didn't get an answer, fearing the worst.
The candle.
Yeah, so
candle was on.
That was another sign that they had a candle on.
Gabriel says the lit candle.
So they had a candle on inside the apartment, which was a sign that they left maybe in a huff or a hurry. And who leaves a lit candle in their apartment when they intend to go out and perhaps not come back? I wouldn't leave a candle on, period. But
and Savannah's diaper bag being left behind told them something was wrong. The house, he says, showing no signs of a struggle. Gabriel says he asked the Leon Valley police detective assigned to the case if they could track his son's cell phone location. He says a detective told him it was unlikely.
Well, at that point in the investigation, they were asking to do something that would require a search warrant. And at some point, I think they would have had enough to present to a judge to say, look, this is an emergency situation warrant. This person, we believe, is missing under emergency circumstances. And of course, in this case, the emergency circumstance was that he was murdered, So the police could have probably got a warrant at that point, but this was very early on, and they were just giving these answers to the family because they didn't know what happened yet. They didn't recover the two victims yet, so they had no idea what was going to happen.
Judge would grant a warrant for that because there weren't exigent circumstances.
He basically said they're adults. If they want to disappear, they can disappear. And again, I reminded him, the baby's overdue. It's been overdue. They missed their due date. And to me, that's a life-threatening, there should have been more urgency.
We reached out to the Leon Valley detective assigned to the missing persons case to see if a warrant was ever.
So they didn't get a warrant for it, but that all became academic because
The
they will
detective
now.
replied that he was instructed by the Leon Valley chief of police to direct questions about the investigation to San Antonio police. He stated that he was not authorized to make any further comments.
I never knew a pain like this existed. You hear about a parent losing a child, and you're like, man, I can't imagine what they're going through. It's exactly how it is. You can't imagine it.
The couple, expected to become first-time grandparents this holiday season, now mourning a son, a grandson, and their would-be grandson's mother.
So very sad. You see this family's ripped apart.
I just hope we can get to the bottom of this and justice be served, because I just can't fathom how anybody could do that to a pregnant woman. I just can't get that.
I just want to raise some questions to you guys in the chat. The family's phone is probably ringing off the hook. Ringing off the hook in the way that they're being told, this is what happened. This is who did this. And so that's one of the reasons that the family in these investigations are a huge resource to the police. And the police absolutely should know that. And that's why detectives are trained on how to really handle people. And you should be nice to everyone, because that person that is in trauma right now, and the family of Matthew Guerra, they're in trauma. Absolutely. They just lost their son. And they can be a huge resource to the police because, as I said, they're going to get calls from his friends. They probably know. Someone probably called them and told them, look, this is who we think did it, And it's especially right around Christmas time. It's such a sad situation. There's this car, young people, right? 18 and 22, and their lives snuffed out. And it happens, unfortunately, happens all the time in this country, all over, in every major city. William M., I will be honest, I don't trust most law enforcement nowadays. That's your prerogative, William M. I see you're Semper Fi. Semper Fi, absolutely. Proud Marine. They say once a Marine, always a Marine, right? Todd Walker, it's tragic, and to kill, you play into that life if you have to deal with the consequences, because people don't care who they hurt. That's so true. That is, that's the way mafia guys talk about it. They talk about the life. I chose this life. I know what this life entailed. I know what could happen to me through living this life. And it's not a surprise. So you live the life. It's in the Bible, it says, if you live by the sword, you will die by the sword. And you could compare that also to the drug trade. Yeah, you want to sell drugs, then get ready for a young, violent death, and it happens all the time. It's all the time, and it's really sad. But Rebecca Morales, plus he was involved in sports, but it was fantasy. It was a dropped sign-on. I'm not sure what you mean, Rebecca, Let's see. Sissy K. At Lisa Marie, the license plate was blurred out on purpose by the detectives before they released the video. Sissy K, I guarantee you they know who owns that vehicle. I guarantee those people who they are calling persons of interest have already been identified. They've been identified, and the police probably, if they haven't pulled them in yet, they're waiting for the right time to pull them in. They're building the case. You know, they know a lot more than we know. We're conjecturing a lot here. The police putting this investigation together. They probably have all these charts with the pictures. You see the charts of the top guy, and it's like a triangle coming down of all the players. You see that a lot with mob. They know exactly who's involved in this, the drug trade in that specific area. This is not something new, something that they're not used to working all the time. So this is, again, a tragic, especially it happens even more tragic when it's around the holidays. Folks, if you're looking for a great attorney in the New York metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe's a retired NYPD police officer and a fantastic defense attorney. You can reach Joe on his cell phone at 718-514-3855. Email him at joe@jmurray-law.com. Go on his website, jmurray-law.com. Not only is Joe a fantastic defense attorney, there's a picture of him right there, but he's a huge supporter of the Police Off the Cuff podcast. So I can't reiterate about how many times that this is such a tragic case, and the barbarism of it, how barbaric it is for a 18-year-old woman who's 9 months pregnant, and that's the mother and father of Matthew Guerra, to lose her life over this and the life of her unborn child. Tragic situation. There's the car, of course, that they were both apparently shot inside of. Forensic evidence from that will, of course, be used to build this case that is tragic as all hell. And we will keep you up to date on this case as we go forward, because there's a good possibility that they could be making an arrest very soon. Lieutenant Peter Pranzo, Harlem Raiders agree, Bill, death and drug dealing go hand in hand. Lieutenant Pete, I know you've seen it so many times that you couldn't count it on two hands, right? It's unbelievable. Thomas Jordan, 2.1 thousand in the room, so hit the thumbs up. Yeah, you guys, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Share it with your friends, family. I'd appreciate that. The Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories podcast. Mark LaCroix, it's so clear that his stepfather is so involved. Body language is everything. He removed damaging guns, drug cells, and large amounts of cash. Wow. Well, Mark LaCroix, you know, I'm just, you're right. I'm sure he knows all about what his son is doing. He knows exactly. He's not, people know what time it is. And then when real bad things happen, Tammy Majors, how long have you been in homicide? Well, Tammy, I did 27 years on the NYPD. My last 10, I was a sergeant in Manhattan North Homicide Squad. And 16 out of those 27, I was a sergeant in the Detective Bureau. And 22 years out of my 27, I was a sergeant. So, and you may say, why were you a sergeant so long? I couldn't pass the damn lieutenant's test. So, but everything worked out. You know how they say sometimes things work out for the better, and it did. In my case, it did. I wound up in the greatest unit on the police department, I thought, Manhattan North Homicide Squad. Miss Sittle, YD, I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. My family went through this exact thing. He went missing December 5th and was found December 19th a few years ago. He was found gunshot wound in his car. His Lexus had sat there the whole time. People walked by every day. I'm sorry that you had to live through that. It's tragic, no matter what the circumstances, and the family are the ones that suffer the most through this. Really horrible. Patricia Siebold, wishing each and all a happy and healthy 2024. That's, absolutely. Rebecca Morellis, they were still in school activity, etc., illegal curriculum activity. It's a lot more than two that it was still, did he graduate the baby's daddy? To me, it's not just drugs now, it's what lures and luxury involved. Yeah, well, it's the fast money. The drug trade, it's fast money. You're not punching a clock. You're not paying taxes. But the downside to that is that you're going to die a violent death and very young. You're not going to last very long. It's just like Kay Taylor, thank you so much for the $5 super stick. I agree. The family is most likely being told who did it and why. That's what happened to my family when my bro was taken. Kay Taylor, I'm so sorry for you that you lost your brother to the streets. Horrible. It's a horrible thing. And the family had nothing to do with this, but yet they suffer right along with it. So a horrible, horrible situation. Elena, it was the family member told the location of the vehicle, not police who told them where it was located. Well, someone probably called the family and said, look, here's where the car is. And then the police responded there. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know if the police were canvassing that area, but there was a missing person report, right? So Rebecca Morellis. So who did he know out there? Hookups to sports, trafficking. To me, it's a lot more than being said on past school year too. I'm not sure exactly where you're going with that, but this seems to me that it was all about the drug trade. And unfortunately, this young man lost his life. Heather, whatever. Thank you for the applause. I'll take applause too. That's very nice. I really appreciate that. Kim Alliston, let's help police off the cuff grow and flourish. Ring that bell. NYPD veterans' passion for justice, honesty, and integrity rules. Kim, thank you so much for everything you do. Kim Alliston is my finest moderator. She emails me almost every single day, and I wish her health and happiness for 2024, as I do all the police off the cuff family. Legal-minded friends, Karen Cole. Not to be political, but do students pray in school nowadays in the mornings? I don't think they're allowed to, Karen. I don't think public schools, they're allowed to do that. Surreptitiously is my favorite word. I still remember the name of the first gang killing that I was dispatched to be in Portland, early 90s. Snitch culture is real. Greg McNeely, you're 100% correct. Snitches do get stitches, and it's unfortunate. It's not just a little poem. Stitches get stitches. It is the truth. It is the law of the land. Killer heels. I think the 2 to 3 perpetrators between 18 and 25 and knew the victims and are in the drug world. The large poi was an accessory. Person of interest. Poi. Poi like it's a Hawaiian food. Person of interest was an accessory. Yeah, you could be very right. As I said, I think the police at this point know exactly who did this. They're just not ready to pull the trigger and make an arrest yet. Gianna Gambino lost many friends to that lifestyle, and they knew they would end up dead or in prison. Yeah, that's your choice in the drug trade, dead or in prison. You don't have too many choices. It's really crazy. Abby 100, please come and solve this case. My investigative days as a gumshoe, as a sergeant of detectives are over. That's why I'm doing this podcast from the safety of my home. I've already been out there with the lead, so it's fun to report on it, to stay sort of in the game. Soldier Girl, I hope the arrests are imminent. Soldier Girl, so do I. Remember that famous song by, was it the Shirelles? But it was Soldier Boy. Soldier Boy, oh my little soldier. Remember that song? Some of you guys as old as me will remember it. I think it was the Shirelles. Great tune. But Soldier Girl, that's what reminded me of it. Soldier Girl, you actually a veteran? Is that why you use that tag? If you are a veteran, thank you for your service. I really appreciate that. Dim Smole, I strongly feel Matthew citing a new child wanted out of the drug trade, and the upper actors in this enterprise didn't want this. It's hard to exit this type of lifestyle without repercussions. Yeah, you're 100% right. And, when you get used to that kind of money, it's hard to walk away. from that type of money. Maria McKenna, what deep evil to kill, especially the woman who was supposed to have a scheduled C-section in the morning. Yeah, horrible. But, that's one of the evidentiary hints that this was a drug hit is that the person had no hesitation to shoot and kill a pregnant woman, had no hesitation whatsoever. So that tells you it's a drug deal. This is part of the drug trade because they have no soul, no soul at all. The police had a role in this by making this young man snitch, knowing he would be killed if he did. Well, I don't think the police look at it in that way. I think they need to, they flip people. If you get arrested and you're facing life in prison, they're going to cut you a deal. And yeah, that's part of it. That's part of the risk that you take in cutting that deal is that, yeah, you could get killed. You could get killed. As we know, we spoke about it all show, snitches do get stitches. And in this case, we don't know for sure that's what happened, but that's what the street is telling us. Phoebe Beach remembers that song. Yeah, that was a good tune, right? Maria McKenna, such evil. Absolutely. Natman, my father was in the penitentiary. I was a BB. He got out and made me jog because I told on my brother he didn't like my big mouth. That's the prison mentality, right? They brought it home, brought it out into the street, Sherry, Nevada Pup, it's also said Happy New Year, Bill, and to all the Police Off the Cuff family. Sherry, thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Texas Street Stories. The shooter could be dead if it was criminal organization. No criminal organization allows the harm of children. Your own organization will give back. Well, we'll see. I think more and more of these gangs have no rules anymore, have no rules whatsoever, no moral code whatsoever. Rocky Shepard, what's going to happen to Matt's father for taking the dealer's drugs and money? Well, who knows? Who knows if let's hope that this violence doesn't continue. Let's hope that before anything like that happens, where any retribution is taken against the family, that the shooter or shooters are arrested and put in prison for the rest of their life. Catherine Mooney, hey, Bill, Happy New Year from Montreal. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone. Malibu Surfer. Yo, Sarge. I love that. Very nice. Abby 101. I love that song. Soldier Boy. Bob Growalski. Happy New Year. Sergeant Bill and all staying safe in 2024. So you folks that are listening to this on Spotify and all the other apps we have, I just like to shout out to the chat that's live in front of me. And you might not know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to people in the chat who make little comments throughout the show. And it's my pleasure to bring up their names and talk to them because they're the big supporters here. So it's Jane says, Sergeant Bill, you definitely have soul. Thank you, Jane. A little bluesy soul, right? A little soldier girl. Oh, Soldier Girl, you're writing something there. What was it? There we go. A friend interested wrote the song Soldier Girl for his wife. Wow. That's a great gift. The gift of music, as they say, right? So, well, folks, we're going to cover this case, the double murder of Savannah Soto and Matthew Guerra. Tragic, especially around the holidays. Tragic loss of a baby that was never born, that was inside the mother's womb. And as this case progresses, and I'm almost positive they're going to make an arrest on this case. And let's all pray that they make an arrest very soon, that the people that did this are going to be held accountable for this, and the families will get some kind of closure. VM Stream, how do they know he gave someone up? The speculation is really wild on all sides. VM Stream, you're right. We don't know. That's what the street is telling. That's what the street is reporting. Sometimes the street has their finger on the pulse of what's going on. Melody Nicole, Dad said he went into the home. We ultimately don't know if he took something or what. No, we don't, Melody. And that's what people are reporting. That's conjecturing. People are reporting. We don't know what he took, or if he took anything. But Monica Ramel, I blame a lot in bad parenting or no parenting. Yeah, it's a little more complicated than that too. Maybe having no skills, maybe no education, living in poverty, drives you to the drug trade, which is easy, quick money. But the trade-off to that is that you die an early death. You don't live too long. And that seems to be what occurred here. Richella Pranzo, look how beautiful Richella Pranzo is. And I'm not going to tell you her age, but she looks amazing. She looks amazing. Her and Lieutenant Pete, incredible. And Richella, thank you so much for all you do. Richella is another one of my moderators, her and Lieutenant Pete. And they've been with me. I guess this podcast is about 4 years old. They've been with me as all through, the ups and the downs. Hopefully this will be a real up year. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to work twice as hard and see if we can hit that 6-figure mark, which I thought I could hit this year, but I didn't. I came very short, but that's okay. I love doing this. It's a labor of love, as they say. M71, unlike our system, the drug business doesn't care for facts. A suspicion or rumor of snitching is a problem that will be dealt with. 100%. It will be dealt with, Lieutenant Pete says, yup, Bill, 4 years. I had Lieutenant Pete on the show when we used to shoot it. My old partner was Mark DeMeo, a retired detective and a stand-up comic. Lieutenant Pete actually came to the offices of the Sergeants Benevolent Association downtown Manhattan, and we did it. That was when the show was supposed to be on a platform called Inside Blue 360 that was run by the SBA, and it never really got off the ground. We did that maybe for 6 or 9 months, and then the channel never got off the ground. Anyway, folks, I want to thank everyone for coming by today. I want to thank you all for joining the show and listening on. God, it's January 1st, 2024. I don't have to. Kim House. Happy New Year, Kim A from Kim H. You guys, I love when you guys know each other in the chat. That's so nice. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for showing up today. And I want everyone to have a wonderful 2024. From my family to yours, God bless. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.
One episode just ain't enough.